Good morning. Did I make y'all nervous a little? My last call went just a little bit over. Sorry.
Fine. Welcome. Can you hear us okay, Linda?
I can. Can you guys hear me?
We can. Yes. We've still got some folks logging on, and there's a few of us here that are present right in the training room. So first of all, we just want to thank you so much for this opportunity. We're just so grateful that you would take time out of your busy schedule to pour into us. I have created some questions for this, but I think the first place to start would be if you could just introduce yourself and give us kind of the journey of real estate, and then maybe a little bit of the journey of your profit share and how that's grown kind of year over year, and then we'll dive into some questions. Okay.
Perfect. All right. Well, it kind of started really honestly in something like COVID-19, except it wasn't COVID-19. It was actually the late 80s in Texas, and the economy in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas was built around savings and loans and oil and gas and real estate, and they all kind of basically crashed at one time. Now, I was 23 years old, and I didn't even know what the word economy meant, much less whether it's a good one or bad one, but I knew something was wrong because my husband, who at the time actually owned restaurants and nightclubs, kind of began to be nervous about things, and he wouldn't want to go to sleep because he said if he went to bed too early, morning came too soon, and when morning came, bankers started calling. And so when he would eventually come clean with me, what I would discover is that we actually had to sell a business for $600,000 less than what we owed against it. So literally overnight, gradually, and then suddenly, like I like to say when I'm teaching Fierce, we went from doing really pretty good to $600,000 in debt. And I always like to say, when you go through something like that, just like this COVID-19, there will be blessings and there will be lessons if we choose to learn them. Lessons that will teach us how we want to do our life moving forward. And that's exactly what happened. During that process, for whatever reason, I've been married to my husband 38 years, and I like to say I could probably count on one hand anytime I've asked his opinion about what he thought I should do. Normally, I just do what I think I should do. But for whatever reason that day, I had a little wisdom person come in and ask him, what do you think I should do? Because he asked me, could I help him? And I had been going to college during the day and working at night some in his restaurants and nightclubs. And I was still trying to figure out who I was and what could I do to make more than minimum wage. And so I looked at him and said, I'm a hard worker, but what in the world can I do to make that kind of money that's going to help you? And he had a Pee Wee football coach that had been his mentor and coach all through high school for football. And he said, he told me one time, if you want to make a lot of money, real estate is the way to do it. Now, we laugh today because that man, I found out, was a developer in Dallas, Texas. And I doubt he said, you know what, get you a wife and get her to sell houses and you guys will be rich forever. I don't think that's what he meant. But you know how when you tell a story and by the time it travels down the line, the story changes? Well, deep down, I'm real thankful that story changed, because selling real estate was really, I always like to say freedom has always been super important to me. I didn't know it, but my soul started telling me how important it was to me right after high school. Because right after high school, I'd always had 2 and 3 jobs during high school, those kind of jobs, grocery store, restaurants, all those things. But when I got out of high school, going to college I didn't even think of that because no one in my family had gone to college. And so a lady I'd worked with at Dairy Queen, her husband was at General Telephone, and he got me a job there. And I would go in at 8 and get off at 5. And my soul kind of started knocking on the door of, this is not you. You don't like this. And the way I knew that is because I would try to cram so much into 2 15-minute breaks and an hour lunch. And that was the first time I really woke up and realized that I needed some freedom. I needed a place where there was unlimited opportunity. So I always like to say, I quit that job and I went into real estate, where you go in way before 8 and you get off way after 5, right? But there's something about it that's different. You're in charge of how much you make. You're in charge of how much you work. Yes, if I worked a lot longer than 8 to 5, you betcha. But I knew there was unlimited opportunity and there was freedom in that. And so that was kind of my first clue that I was going to be passionate about freedom, and I would really want to help other people learn how and create freedom lifestyles. And I think COVID-19 is going to do the same thing for us. It's going to make us look up and go, where did I need more freedom when this happened? Where did I need more than one stream of income? Where did I need, my lifestyle to be different so that I had more options? And so that's why I say, even through something like this, there's going to be blessings and lessons that actually can launch us into something better and a bigger and brighter future if we allow it. So the pain of going through that $600,000 in debt, I always say it's never marriage enriching when you're financially in trouble. You don't come home and say, "Hey dear, how was your wonderful day?" I mean, you fight about money a lot. There's stress, there's pressure. And so I think the pain of going through that told Jimmy and I both that we didn't want to ever go through that again, that we didn't want to be in that same position. So we started reading books about who are the people that, even if the shift happened or the whatever happens, their lifestyle doesn't change because they've created freedom of their money, their time, and their relationships. And so we read Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but actually it was his second book that gave us the answers that we needed. And that book was called Cash Flow Quadrant. And in there, he says there's only 3 ways to build wealth. And I don't know about you, but I like it when something complicated gets simple because I'm more inclined to take action. Whereas if there was 1,000 ways to build wealth, I probably would have never started one of them. It's too many choices. So because there was only 3, we had to look up and say, okay, what's the one that would be easiest for us to take advantage of? And I think because we had owned businesses, and we just kind of went through a bad spell with that, we weren't thinking about businesses. I was thinking about real estate as a sales, not really as a business yet. And we didn't like stocks. Real estate, stocks, and businesses were our choices. And if you don't enjoy learning about something, you really can't be a true investor of it. You're really only a speculator of it because you're going to have to speculate or trust someone else. And that's where all the risk was. That's where we saw everybody losing their money, is because they were speculating, not really investing. And so we said, well, that's not an option. And so we said, well, what would be the best option would maybe be real estate investing. So our first plan was to build $250,000 coming in passively through real estate investing. And we used my husband's timeline because he was almost 40 when we started doing the investing. And so we said, well, how long would it take us? What would we have to have 250,000 coming in passively by the time Jimmy was 60 if he was about to be 40? And so from that, we worked it backwards and realized we needed 20 properties free and clear, bringing us about $1,000 a month. Now, we weren't with KW, so nothing about profit share was even an option, right? We couldn't treat profit share as a business because we didn't know it. There was no such a thing at that time. So we started working our plan. And the first thing I did was found a property, and all of a sudden we couldn't buy it because we had no money and no credit. So I truly believe that when you make a decision about something and you start to take action on it, in my opinion, the good Lord helps you figure out the answers and how to get there. And for me, he did just that. I got up the next day after I found a property, and my husband said, we don't have any money and we don't have any credit. And I thought, you know what? My builder friend, Lou, he will do this with us. So I went to him and asked him, would he do it? And he said, yes. So we bought our first property with him. And then we bought 2 more properties with him. And so when you decide that you're going to build wealth and that you want freedom, you're going to find the answers because they're there. And so by this time, I'm doing pretty good in real estate. I didn't in the beginning. In the beginning, I only made $3,000 gross. Jimmy said that was super gross because he owed $600 and I was making $3,000, and he was spending $15 for me to make $3. That he said that math is not good. But someone paid for me to go to a conference. And I realized that anything in life you want to find the answers to, they're out there somewhere. And it was at that conference I started to realize that people were out there doing 50 transactions, 150, and that hadn't been talked about in my city at that point. Nobody had been talking about doing that many deals. And so because of that, I immediately started implementing everything that they told me to do with my real estate business, and we started making more and more money. And as we made money, we had the title company take out 15% of every commission check and put it into an account so that we could go buy those 20 properties so that we could hit that goal of around 250,000 in 20 years with 20 properties. So fast forward, I'm now number 1 agent in my city. Keller Williams' philosophy is to go find the number 1 agent in the city that has good influence and good production and bring them over. So they started recruiting me. And to be honest with you, I didn't get the profit share in the very beginning. I didn't let anybody talk to me about it. I thought it was kind of hoaxy. And I thought 50 more houses or 100 more houses was going to solve all my problems. So I wasn't even thinking about considering KW profit share. And then one day I had one of those really bad transactions. It's kind of the one, where it's bad because you go try to find your resume. And when I went and found my resume, I realized why I was selling real estate because that resume was going to get me about minimum wage still. So I thought, okay, I'm going to keep selling real estate, but maybe I should learn about this Keller profit share so that I actually have more options and more freedom someday. And so that really set me on the journey to reach out to someone who knew about profit share. I didn't even know where the money came from, honestly. And so I reached out to this person and said, look, I'm going to teach your people how to build how to get listings, how to build a team, how to turn your team over to 7th level, whatever you want me to teach them. But you've got to help me understand Keller's profit share, because actually during that time, Gary Keller had asked all of us in his top 20 to do a pro forma on a standalone business besides your real estate sales. And because everything was taken, he suggested to me that I pick profit share. And so in a next quarter, I was going to have to get up in front of my peers and present a pro forma on how you make money in Keller's profit share. So when I went to this guy, I said, look, if I do anything, I want to try to do it big. So why don't you help me figure out what does a person have to do if they want to make $1 million in Keller's profit share? And so that's what he did. He said, I know exactly what you have to do. You need to go get 20 people, help 20, get 5,000 total. And so I programmed that into my little Nokia phone at the time, and I looked at it every single day. And then after I did the pro forma, where I actually understood where the money comes from and how you figure out how much a capper is worth and a calf capper and all that, I was so convicted that we needed to treat this as a business that I got busy and I just started thinking about who I would want to be in relationship with and who I was already in relationship with. And so I'm going to kind of give you the formula. And this is the same formula I use to build a real estate business to over 200 transactions a year. So I want you to write this down. If you were going to send me anywhere to build anything, this is the formula I'd use. So if you can, I wasn't all that great at school, C minus, C plus, maybe max, except for PE, I got an A in that one. But so I think this was an algebra problem, but write it down and you'll know when you see it. So if you will, think about the capital letter R, and then I want you to put the plus sign. And then I want to for you to put a capital V. And then I want you to put another plus sign and another V. And then I want you to draw a line under that and put the letter T. Okay. So now I'm going to kind of go back and explain what those means to you. If you're going to build anything, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, who do I want to be a hero to? Who are the people I want to build a relationship with? Who are the people that if I got up and my sole job was to help them every day, I wouldn't worry about what time it is, if it's time to eat, how much money I'm making, because I enjoy it that much. Now, here's the truth. I didn't ever like it when people would say to me, what's the thing you do for free? Because I'm thinking, I don't know if there's anything I do for free. However, I now understand what they meant. What they meant is, what is the thing that when you do it, you're not sitting there calculating how much money you're getting for it? Because here's what happens. When you give enough value into the world, you cannot keep the money away, whether it's in real estate sales or whether it's in building your profit share or building your investment portfolio. When you give enough value out to the right people, you cannot keep the money away. So for me, discovering who are those people that give me energy that I love to help, that's the first step. So I'm going to tell you, for right now, if you were going to build a profit share tree, I'd say pick 5 people, no more than 5, because you got to go deep with people on this formula. So pick 5 people, pick a few above your production, a few below your production, and a few at your production. And I'm going to tell you why now. With the second V, that V stands for validity, because people will not open the door and let you build a relationship with them until you're valid to them. So and here's what I like to say about validity. Everybody has it and nobody thinks they do, but everybody has it. Your validity comes from your experiences, your knowledge, your lessons you've learned, what you've accomplished. That's all your natural validity. But there are other things that you can use as validity. All the books that have been written through KW, other people's stories in KW, other people in KW. All these things are things that you can use as your validity, because without validity, the people won't let you have and open up to that relationship. Does that make sense? So think about it like this. Who are you already helping in your market center? Who comes to you and what do they come to you for? You have some expertise and you probably like sharing that with people. So who are those people that love and need that expertise that you have? That's who you'll have some natural validity with. All right. And so then the next V is what we call the value gap. And Zig Ziglar probably said this best. You're going to get what you want in life by helping enough other people get what it is they want. And the key words there is they want, not what I think they should want, not what I pretend I know they want. What do they want? And so that's what we have to figure out as we're building, whether it's our sales business and those people, or whether it's the people in that we want to bring to KW. And so the value gap is, what's that challenge or that chasm that that person needs to try to get across. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend all my time and energy dropping things that I already have into that value gap. Because what happens is there's a very strong motivator that people underestimate, and it's called beholdenness or reciprocity. And what happens is when you give to someone, over time, it creates beholdenness and they can't stand it. They want to now give something back to you. So that something back to me that I want them to give me is to say yes when I ask them to take a bigger step. Because here's the thing, we're not good enough to make a seller sell, a buyer buy, or an agent join. So we got to just get over that right now. None of us can make people do anything. What we can do is help them self-discover that what they need to get their dreams and their goals and everything in life is at Keller Williams. And once they discover that, then and only then will they join. And so my role really is to help figure out what those value gaps are and drop as many things as possible into that value gap. And that's how I build that relationship deep enough. And the way you get someone to self-discover is 3 ways: stories, questions, and experientially. Experientially is the best. In other words, if I can let them experience what a relationship with KW is like, that's when I'm going to move them. They're going to move along that line, if they're going to move, a lot faster, because experientially they're getting to experience it themselves. We can't make people do anything. We can only get them to self-discover. So then the bottom T is time. And this is the hard part. I don't get to decide how long it takes. They do. So I just got to be willing to put the time in until they self-discover that what they want out of life and their business is at KW. And so that's the one I have to not be attached to. And so there's two ways I like to start a conversation with someone. One is a compliment, but here's the thing, it has to be genuine and real. People see through fake compliments, so don't do that. But trust me, if you think long and hard enough about these people, you'll know a good compliment that's a true compliment for them. And the reason I use compliment is because nobody ever gets enough compliments and nobody minds a new one. And then the second thing I like to use for starting a conversation, and sometimes I'll put them both together and use them both together, is ask someone what they think or what their input is or what their thoughts are. And because again, people don't get asked enough what they think, and they love to tell you what they think or what their thoughts are. So those are my 2 ways to start a conversation. And then once I start the conversation, I'm just going to, on the first conversation, I'm going to ask great questions. As soon as possible, I'm going to get the conversation to go from the compliment or whatever to about them. And I might use something appropriate right now. Like I might say, based on, I might say, hey, Jonathan, this is Linda. And I don't say Keller Williams and I don't say the words KW. I leave them out. So I say, hey, Jonathan, this is Linda. I just want to say thank you for being such a great, agent on the other side of 123 Main Street. Really did appreciate how responsive you were during that whole transaction. And I just want to call and say thank you. He's going to say, oh, you're welcome. I appreciate that. Yes, we did get that deal done. It was hard, blah, blah, blah. Now, as soon as possible, I'm going to say, hey, Jonathan, I really respect you in the industry. And while I have you on the phone, I'm just kind of asking everybody I possibly can, what are some of the challenges that you've really had trying to continue to keep your business up during COVID-19? And I'm going to listen to what he said. I'm going to listen for those value gaps that Jonathan has, and I'm going to write them down, and I'm going to do nothing with them right now. I'm not going to solve them. Even if I can solve one or two of them right now, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to write it down, and I'm going to finish out I'm going to let him talk as long as he'll talk, write down as many value gaps as I pick up on or hear. And then when I call Jonathan back in a week or 2 weeks, I'm going to say, hey, Jonathan, this is Linda. And I was thinking about our conversation the other day, and I don't know if you'd be offended or not, but I actually have, you said one of the things that you were struggling with is, how to do a Zoom presentation. Well, I've got a video, or I've got a few notes from a class I took, whatever I've got. I'm going to now offer to give that to Jonathan. I'm going to try to help him fill that value gap. And I'm just going to continue to do that and drive that relationship deeper. And then at some point, I'm going to ask Jonathan to take a bigger step. So you guys are probably doing Zoom training, I'm assuming, during all of this. So I might say, hey, Jonathan, this is Linda again. And I was thinking about you. And one of the things that you said you really would love some information around. And I don't worry about if it's 100% perfect. I remember activity breeds activity. And I've always done this with buyers and sellers, and it's always worked. I don't wait till I have the perfect something. I just let the activity take care of itself. So I just say, hey, Jonathan, there's a great training coming up. I don't know if you'd be offended, but I think I can get you in. It's one of the Zoom trainings. And I'd love for you to, I think it might help you with X or whatever. And so I'm going to invite Jonathan in because that's a big step. And because he's going to experientially experience what we're doing over here, and then when he goes back to his company and it's crickets, nobody's doing anything or nobody's helping anything, that's going to start to bother him. And so I'm just going to keep doing little things, dropping little things into the value gap. And when I get an opportunity, I'm going to ask him to take a big step. Maybe taking a big step might be once we're past COVID-19, or even on a Zoom call to sit in on me prospecting through Zoom, or sit on me doing a career visioning process because he needs to learn how to hire people. Whatever. The thing about this is it's not either or. Either I got to work on my sales business or I work on my profit share. It's an and. So everything I'm doing, I'm thinking, and how can I do this too? Because you don't have to just say, well, okay, now I'm not working on my real estate business. Now I'm working on this. I can actually use, because we all only got 24 hours. So how can I use the 24 and make multiple streams of income come in rather than just one? So because I just did a Zoom call, I'm trying to remember what I've told you and what I didn't tell you. So we'll fill in the gaps here in a little bit. But so then what I do is I just pick, and don't pick more than 5 people. And the reason for that is because you want to get this muscle going. And once this muscle is going and it's automatic, you'll see these opportunities even more. I've taken a picture of an agent's dog off of their Facebook page, and I didn't do it. I had my assistant do it. Had them frame it in a nice frame and send it to her. I was about to teach a class. She's doing 145 transactions all by herself. She's killing herself. She has no life. I know what one of her big value gaps is, because she's told me is I got to get my life back. So I was teaching a class one day, and I saw in there that one of the many reasons why people don't hire someone to help them is, one, they think nobody can do it as good as them. So I took a snapshot of that and texted it to her, and she responded immediately to me. So you'll start to find ways that you can help this person. And you just keep doing that. And when they self-discover, ever how long that takes, my longest person took 12 years so far. I've got a girl I think might beat her eventually. She's taken forever, but I'm not attached to the time because I can't be. The timing is only when they feel and when they self-discover that this is right for them. So let me think something else that I might not have told you. Relationships, you want to pick people above, below, and at, because you have some natural validity. Validity, or it could be books, it could be everything you've learned. It could be what you teach already in your market center. If you already teach something in your market center, it could be leveraging somebody else's story in the market center, the rookie of the year story or your top producer story. Just learn people's stories in Keller Williams. I use Mo Anderson's story a lot. When I just recruited an indie in our area, and I used Mo Anderson's story because she was beginning to try to think she was too old to do anything. And so I just I told her the Mo Anderson story. So know the stories of people in KW. If you've got people, us being $600,000 in debt, if our story helps you help someone, use that story. Those are all the things that help you create validity and keep, that person willing to build a relationship with you. And this is something you got to enjoy the people that you're doing this with. And so I don't do new people because they make my head hurt. New people make my head hurt because of all the things they don't know that they got to learn. I just want to hook a hose up to my head and up to theirs. So I don't pick new people. My son likes to do new people. Him and somebody in his downline has a whole process for new people. I just let them do the new people. I want to do people that actually give me energy and I have fun helping. So I pick mega agents, or what I call untouchables, the people that everybody thinks they've got it all together and there's no value gaps. Those are my favorite. So think about, who do you love to help in your market center, and go after those people, because it's going to be more natural and you're going to already have some natural tools to use and do that. And then as you start to go to classes and hopefully you're watching some of KW Connect, and as you get things, now you're thinking about the people that are on your list. And so you're taking notes better, or you're filing that away somewhere, because over time, people will kind of tend to have the same value gaps. So if I know someone needs a great listing presentation, I'm going to keep my best listing presentation somewhere where I can reach it handy, or my assistant knows where it is, so that when I say, hey, send this to Jonathan, it's a system. That's the only part of it that I kind of make a system, because that way I'm not hunting. I love to hunt. Don't get me wrong. I have a mug by my desk that says organized people are just too lazy to look for things, because looking for things is my specialty. I don't really love it, but it is my MO of who I am. So if I can put that into a system and have her do it, that helps me a lot. So that's kind of the real down and dirty. That's how I built my real estate business to over 200 transactions a year. I use the same formula. It's how, when they asked me to go to Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky and build Keller Williams, I went from 0 agents to 4,200 because building Keller Williams, because I just did that. I went and found the relationships. I used my validity, and I just filled their value gaps until they self-discovered that KW was the right place for them to change their own personal life. And I bet you every single one of you on here have a story about how KW changed your life. And so my question to you is if it changed your life, why are we not so convicted to go out and see who else's life we might be able to change with that decision?
So good. Thank you, Linda. We're going to open up the chat box for anybody that's online for any questions. We do have a group of leadership here together, Linda. So what would be your one piece of advice for the team leaders, OPs, tech coordinators, agent services coordinators, MCAs? And then after that, why don't you tell us about your podcast and how they can find you?
Okay. So tell me the first part of the question again. Sorry.
As an OP, what would your advice be for the team leaders that are here in the room and any of their staff on how they can take some of this information and pour into the agents inside their market center?
I think, again, you need to remember, people don't do what you tell them. They do what they self-discover. So as leaders, our job is to help people self-discover. It's to get them to think the way they need to think so they get what it is they want. And, people only do what's in it for them. And so anything you're trying to get them to do to move them forward to better their life, figure out a way to tap into what it is that's important to them and help remind them, so let's say, for example, if I had my ALC and I was trying to get my ALC to understand and build their profit share better, one, I would bring other people on, because you're never a prophet in your own backyard. And you keep saying, it's kind of like when your kids come home and say, hey, Tommy's mother said X, and you're like, crap, I've been saying that for years and you didn't listen. You know what I mean? So sometimes your job is to find other teachers to teach, when your student's ready, the teacher will appear. But also, keep them connected to why it is that, what has it done for them? Because I think we don't do things when we think we're doing something to someone instead of for someone. See, as a leader in this company, you have to have such a conviction to go out and change lives through helping people discover Keller Williams, like your life was changed. And then I would just say, if you don't have that passion, you're not in the right role, because you got to wake up and be passionate about doing that. Otherwise, you're going to feel like you're doing something to someone, and it's going to be a hard job, and it's not going to be fun. And I bet if you check yourself, you're not really even having that much fun. But when you're convicted that how much your life was changed. The thing you have to be careful of is sometimes when we're passionate about how much has changed our life, we go out and throw up on other people. And that's not what I'm teaching you. I'm teaching you how just to go up and make it about them and let them self-discover through what your process that KW is a match. That's the only way they're going to join anyway. So, you know, I would just say, check on a regular basis, ask them, hey, you know, if we have such a great gift of profit share, why do we not have more of our people taking advantage of it? And they don't take advantage of it because for so many years we told them what not to do, but we didn't bother to tell them how to do it. And right before COVID happened, we were scheduled to fly into Austin and put our whole profit share course into an online course so that you could go out, you could take the course, go out and practice some of it, and then come back and learn a little bit, because we don't get it all. Like, you know, I probably only get 10% of what I ever learn when I learn it the first time. I got to go back again. Like, I've been to career visioning, gosh, who knows, 30 times. I've taught it 50, 60 times. I mean, but it layers that information. And so same thing with this stuff. You got to hear it and you got to go back and revisit it. And so this is only going to be as good as you go try it and you go get your people to try it also. And I think once it's explained that way, that it's about relationships, we're going to get that, because that's how we're having to go out and build our real estate practices every day anyway. So I would just say, you know, don't give up on people. Your life was changed. Their life was changed. They need that passive income. I think COVID-19 is really going to make us wake up and want more of a freer lifestyle. I think more people are going to be ready for what we're so passionate about teaching, which is freedom lifestyle. That means I've got freedom in my relationships, my time, my money. You know, because any kind of situation like this, it wakes you up. It's your wake up call to say, I got to have more than one stream of income. One's not going to be enough moving forward in the future. This won't be our last incident. This won't be our last gradually and then suddenly. Life is full of gradually and suddenlies. And we have to figure out how to use what has Keller Williams already given us that we can use to go do that. You don't have to go, do something else. Just use the opportunities that you have in front of you to build those multiple streams of income is kind of what I would say. And hopefully we'll get that course out after COVID-19 kind of goes away, and we can go back to the film studio at KWRI. So if you'll go to, well, you can do this. I'm going to give you a freedom worksheet because everybody needs to start with what's your number. We started with the number of 250. We've since blown by that number and changed it and done everything else. But you need a number to start, and it's not as important to what number you pick. It's just that you pick a number. So if you'll text to the number 33444, freedom number as one word, put it together as one word, you'll get a worksheet that's called our freedom number worksheet, and you can actually go through that worksheet and start. It'll also trigger you to give us your email on lindamckisack.com, and that's where we'll notify when we finish our freedom course, when we finish our profit share course. That'll be the first people that we have in a database that we can actually notify about that. And then the podcast that I have right now, I'm currently looking to do one on intermittent fasting because I'm so passionate about how that has changed my life. But right now I have one with another girl her name is Dana, and we co-hosted together, and it's called Everything, Life, and Real Estate. Everything, Life, and Real Estate. And I try to have really good guests on there. And then Dana and I just chatted up about everything, life, and real estate. So yeah, we'd love to have you join us there. If you love podcasts like I do, I'm just addicted to podcasts. I love great information and knowledge. So I want you to finish this question. I would go start tomorrow with this process of building my profit share, and I know we're not supposed to use the word but I haven't figured out another words I could use. And then whatever your but is something I didn't clarify with you, that I didn't answer a good enough question for. And I don't want you to have those, because that's going to be the limiting roadblock that keeps you from taking action on this, right? And our whole goal would be for you to change, to have a bigger, brighter future because of this, not to do nothing with it. So can we open that up for questions?
Yeah, that's great. I don't, anyone else in the room have any questions for Linda before we?
Oh, you know what? I see one on here that says, I was curious why you would go hunting in your market center for these relationships. Aren't these people already under someone in the profit share line already? Remember, I'm not going in the market center looking for them. I help people in my market center, and I'm sure all of you do too, because that's who we are. So what I'm saying to you is to figure out your validity. I think this might be Rachel that asked me this. Rachel, you can't recruit anybody in your market center because they're already there. But what I can do is say, what am I already helping people in my market center? That might be my validity that I could use to help someone else outside of the market center. So hopefully that answered your question. So I'm not hunting in my market center. I'm just thinking in my market center, who comes to me for help and what do I enjoy helping people with? That's going to help me know what my validity is to get in relationship with other agents.
Great.
Hopefully that helped, Rachel.
Absolutely. Anybody else on the Zoom call want to unmute themselves and ask a question before we let go? All right, before we let you go, just tell us your cumulative profit share and maybe what you earned last year.
Last year it was a 1.4 something, almost 1.5 million between Jim and I. And by the way, we only have 33 people in our front line. And by the way, all you can be responsible for is your front line. I can't be responsible for how many people get in the other parts of the line. That just happens automatically from other people deciding to change other people's lives. So I want to say Dick Dillingham knows this number better than I do. I know it's over 10 million accumulatively, maybe even like 12 or 13 million accumulatively. But I'm terrible. I don't keep up with those numbers or pay attention. I don't pay attention who's in my downline, who leaves my downline. I don't focus on any of that stuff. I just focus on changing lives. And all I can do is the front line. All I can do is build relationships with the people in the front line. The rest will kind of just happen, you know, take on its own life, if you will. Jessica says she's in my 6th level. Yay, Jessica, I really hope you get this. And by the way, you know, that's another thing you can use for validity. If you have a instructor coming, they're always willing to help. If you've got a recruit that you can bring to the class, if you've got people in your upline and you've got a big producer that you don't feel like you have the validity, somebody there would be willing to step in and have a call with someone, especially if you can see something like, say, for example, let's say you were going to use me, then you would want people that are interested in creating wealth and freedom and leverage of their business and turn it over to someone else. You'd think of all the things that I've accomplished. And when you hear that person talk and what they want, you're going to associate, oh, Linda's story would be a great story. But anybody that's if they're in your upline, don't hesitate, reach out. Those people are going to be willing to help you. Now, don't give them somebody like, don't give me a new person because I don't want to do that. It's not fun for me. And you don't need me, right? But if you had someone that was an untouchable or a mega, and you know that you don't really feel like you have the validity to do it, use someone in your upline that does have the validity to do it. So great question. Well, great statement because you're my downline. Where do we send our, I would start my profit share? Oh, tomorrow, but you give it to me right now. You can type it into the chat because this is what I want to answer. Because here's the thing. I think it's Michelle that asked this. Michelle, if you have this, so does someone else on this call. And we don't want anybody leaving from this call going, oh, I would do this, but see, this isn't an either or, it's an and. Tomorrow I'm going to get up and I can do this with everything I'm already doing. You know, one of the things that I always say to people is, a big step that you can do is you can ask someone to shadow you or to do something that gives you accountability. And then you're actually doing something for yourself and you're helping that other person. And I'll give you a story of that real quick. In the early days when you joined Keller Williams, you could shadow Gary Keller. So I took advantage of that a lot. And one day when I was there, at the end of the day, he looked at me and said, Linda, what do you think? And I said, well, Gary, I think I couldn't do what you do because you're such a disciplined person. And honestly, I don't like being that rigid or that disciplined all the time. And he laughed and he said, well, what days have you been to my office to shadow me? And I said, I think a Monday and a Tuesday or something like that. He said, yeah, you've never been here on a Thursday or Friday, have you? And I said, no, don't think so. He said, do you know why? said, no, have no idea. He said, because I haven't invited you to come those days. You think you're here for you, but you're actually here for me. Because when you're shadowing me, I'm going to do the hard things and I'm going to do them well. And so that was my wake up call that if you're recruiting someone and they need to learn how to do career visioning, and you're going to do career visioning, you're going to do it better if they're sitting in a chair shadowing you while you do career visioning. Or if you need to lead generate, are you going to lead generate better if someone's sitting in a chair watching you lead generate? Yes, you're going to be way better. So how that would go is if I was calling Jonathan and I had been pouring into Jonathan's value gap, and I knew Jonathan needed to learn how to lead generate, I'd just say, hey, Jonathan, this is Linda. I was thinking about you. And one of the things that you said you really needed to do more of is lead generation. And this would actually help me too, if you wouldn't mind doing it. But if you wouldn't be offended, I'd love to have you shadow me on my lead generation. And here's the thing, when I finish, I'll give you some of my best scripts that have actually been working well for me. Would that be something that would be interesting to you? Because think about it. How many of us would have loved to go on a listing presentation with somebody? How many right now would probably love to learn how to do business on Zoom? You could invite them to shadow you on something you're doing on Zoom, like working with a buyer or a seller or staging a home, whatever. These are called big steps. And when you create beholdenness and reciprocity and people want to give back, the way they're going to give back is you're going to ask them to do a big step and they're going to do it. And if they don't do it, I just go back to doing number one, which is pouring into them and filling their value gap until they do say yes. So hopefully that cleared up some. And someone said, how do you create a balance? Well, because it's one, you don't need balance. We only have 24 hours and I can't go make more hours, but I can already think about what am I doing tomorrow that somebody in the industry would be so thankful if I would help them with it or let them shadow me or be a part of it. So as you begin to build these relationships and just do little things, you're going to start to see ways that, oh, if I was working with Jessica, I'd say, oh, you know what? Jessica said she needs to hire somebody and I need to do a career visioning process. Now, because of COVID, I'm going to have to do it on Zoom, but I'm going to invite Jessica and see if she'd like to. Now, here's what happens, because I'm not saying Keller Williams and I'm not saying KW. What Jessica is self-discovering is that KW has a great process that she's now got to go home and she doesn't have. See, does that make sense? See, when you experientially let people see, they go back to where they are and they think, well, I don't have that here. Nobody here cares about me winning that much. You start to create that in their mind of, I want that. I like that. And so I never bring up KW. I make them bring it up twice before I'll even talk about it. And here's the thing. What's the worst thing someone could say? I always say this, when you're going on a listing presentation or any kind of presentation, always think of what's the worst thing someone could say that would cause you to start groveling and selling and all that stuff, because that's never good. It doesn't work on listings or buyers or recruiting or anything. So I've said, what's the worst thing someone could say to you, that fear that you're going to have? And so the fear I think you're going to have is, what if, let's say I'm working with Jonathan again. What if Jonathan said to me, well, you're just trying to recruit me? Well, the first thing I want you to do if someone does say that to you is, number one, how am I doing this wrong? Because I'm building a relationship and I'm pouring into people and they can't see that as recruiting. Okay. Because I'm not good enough to recruit them. I'm just good enough to build a relationship and pour into their value gaps and get them to self-discover that they should look at Keller Williams. So one, how am I doing it wrong? Check yourself. Are you getting excited because you think they're nibbling and you start selling KW? Are you selling KW? What are you doing? Because you're doing something wrong. If that's not the case, if you get to check a big fat no on that one, then number two, you may have done it wrong in the past to them and they see you as that person that tries to sell them on KW. All right. Number three, someone else may have done it wrong and they may have tried to sell them on KW and they feel like everybody at KW tries to sell them. So I'm going to have you have the perfect script if someone does say this. And that's this. If Jonathan were to say to me, well, you're just trying to recruit me, here's what I would say. I'd say, well, here's the thing, Jonathan, you're an amazing agent and you're exactly the kind of agent that we hope to be in business with someday. But here's what I know for sure. If you ever believe that what you want out of your business and your life for you and your family, you can get quicker and better at Keller Williams, Jonathan, I won't have to recruit you, dude. You'll be knocking our door down. And then I'm going to go right back to talking about what we were talking about before. See how I didn't grovel and start to sell Keller Williams or stumble, because I do know that for sure. And that's the truth. And I took the air out of that. I took the energy out of him saying that. And I'm going to go right back to helping him and doing what I was doing before that even came up. But I think that's a good thing to have in your toolbox so that you're not worried about it and you don't get started, because because odds are it's not going to come up ever unless you are doing it wrong or you have done it wrong in the past or someone else has. Because if you do this correctly, no one can see this as recruiting. I can only see it as you building a relationship and helping them out. And life gives to the giver and takes from the taker, as my friend Joe Polish says.
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. I think there's more questions. Okay. Do we have time? I had told your assistant about 45 minutes. Do we have time?
Yeah, let me see when my next one is. I think we're, let's see. No, I do have another call I need to jump on. So if you'll shoot those questions to me, I will be happy to answer them. But the main thing I see on one here is there was one with the service industry closing and people needing opportunity. What would my follow-up plan look like with new people? With new people, you don't have to do as much of this. You actually just have to get them to the team leader as quick as possible. I just make sure they know me, or I'd go with them, do the Zoom with them, with the team leader. Because sometimes with new people, they don't get to know you very well. And when they get to the team leader, they don't know who to pick. So, but yes, I think it's going to be a huge opportunity, because just like us, they're going to be checking our freedom. My hairdresser's already reached out to me to how to get her license. My trainer's already reached out to me. Absolutely. Call your database right now and ask everybody in it, have they ever thought about a career in real estate?
Awesome. Thank you, Linda. We'll let you get to the next call. Thank you. Thank you.
See you guys. I want to hear your great stories, your success stories.
Okay.